Hello Wolves fans and welcome to your latest episode of GTA Fancast with me, Gully, from the Wolves Fancast YouTube channel. Going to be looking at a cluster of games really. We haven't covered them properly from a tactical perspective, but there are some themes running through the last three performances against Leicester, Arsenal and West Ham, which basically have led to our demise to a certain extent over those fixtures, especially with playing out from the back. And I'm going to be having a little bit of a look at how we do it, why we do it, and why teams are finding out how to stop us from progressing the ball up the pitch.
So first of all, I want to talk us through why exactly it is that everyone has all of a sudden started playing out from the back. I say all of a sudden, it's been a part of the English game, I'd say, for probably the last 15 years maybe or so. And essentially, it's just trying to be as deliberate and put the percentages in your favour as possible. I think basically what goalkeepers used to do was pump it into the middle of the pitch where everybody are kind of bunched together around the halfway line, and you're looking at a 50-50 ball between defence and attack, and anything can happen really. It was low risk, but it's very low reward as well. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, and I think what the real point of actually playing out from the back and having possession deep in this part of the pitch is all about is creating a lot more space in this part of the pitch. When you get into the final third, what you really want is more space to operate in. Your players have easy decisions to make on the ball rather than having to really weave their way into a situation against a deep block, and hopefully then take advantage of those situations. As you can see here, I've kind of set up in the way that Wolves tend to play out from the back. We've got our three centre halves running across the pitch from Kilman, Cody and Sace. With the new rule that you're allowed to receive possession in the box with attackers not allowed to enter until the ball has been played, that gives defences a little bit of an advantage, and teams have operated in really different ways around this. It might not seem immediately obvious why we'll play the little 5-yard pass between the goalkeeper to Sace or Cody, but as you can see here, with the way the players are actually laid out, each player is isolated to an extent. They've got a little bit more space to operate in, and if they do receive the ball, then there are options around them, and you can just pick little passes which to a certain extent are less risky in terms of you're looking at maybe if Saar looks to pick a ball out into the wider forward here, it's a one-on-one situation rather than being surrounded by opposition players. But teams obviously have ways of combating this. We tend to go out to either Sace or Cody, and then you're looking at probably playing out to one of the wing backs who then gets pressed. And there's always, generally speaking, a central midfielder in here to go and play off. And it's usually a quick pass in here and then into a forward. Or because, as we know, Romain Saïss is really, really good at picking those passes into the forwards as well. He might receive the ball in this kind of position and then really kind of thread a ball through into the forwards, who hopefully will receive the ball with their back to goal and hold on to it. Now, the reason we've suffered, I think, a little bit in recent weeks is simply the fact that teams have taken a bit of a high-risk approach to it and essentially gone man for man on our forwards, and that allows the rest of the team to really put us under a lot of pressure near to our own goal. As I've explained, Romain Saïss is so important to the way we play in terms of moving the ball forward, but unfortunately, those kind of passes, especially to feet, with the kind of players you're looking at, obviously it was Hwang who started in this position here at the weekend. He's not the kind of player who's good with receiving the ball with his back to goal. He's a great player with the ball in front of him, making those runs in behind, but to get into that situation, you need someone who's going to face up and really hold the ball up. Again, Fabio Silva and Trincao were the other options in the forward positions, not likely to win many physical battles against the likes of Kurt Zouma, Craig Dawson, etc. So we were on a little bit of a hiding to nothing this weekend particularly. And what we found was that because we were trying to play into the middle of the park in here, and there's a couple of examples that I'm going to flash up as well with Marcel receiving the ball here, playing into Dendoncker. These two midfielders are totally free, basically, once the ball is played in here, to go and harass Dendoncker into a mistake. You know, if the ball's come in here, generally speaking, you've probably got a wide man who's going to go and press Marcel. This striker can go and stop that ball going back in there, and then you've closed the game into this kind of space. And you know, obviously, individual characteristics can influence the way what's gonna happen there. Marcel, being a predominantly left-footed player, isn't necessarily going to pick out a good pass with his right foot into these kind of spaces, but it's just, I think, something that teams have picked up on recently that we should probably do a little bit more work on. I think what we did do well in the Arsenal game, as an example, was we offered runs in behind. We got our goal from a situation like that where Sace pumped a long free kick into this channel. Now we got the defence turned. We didn't quite get hold of possession in that situation, but again, percentage pass. Gabriel, under a lot of pressure, obviously forced a mistake, and Hwang was able to back up that press and win the ball as it was played over to Aaron Ramsdale. But ultimately, when the ball was being played into like Jimenez's chest, you know, Gabriel, Ben White as well, told be aggressive, be straight in there, being relentless in making sure that that ball keeps getting put back into situations that we don't want it to be in. And that's where, as good as the defence we have, the pressure eventually tells. Now, we are probably at a little bit of a loss at the moment just because we've only got one central striker able to sit in that team. I mean, people have spoken about having a midfielder, the extra midfielder, and then going back to the midfield three with the front two. I mean, if we were to kind of situate players in there again, if you've got a front two, it doesn't really change too much for me. I think, you know, the ball can get into the midfield here, but you're still far too close to the edge of your own penalty area. Bruno likes to push the wing backs on. So, I mean, if Romain Saiss was to kind of receive the ball off the goalkeeper here, that ball being played into Dendoncker, I think, is still a more dangerous pass than if you lose the ball up here with a forward. So it's a bit of a trade-off with having the extra midfielder in there. Ultimately, I think when we move to a back four and we've got an extra option, if I kind of just lay us out into that kind of shape, how we'd probably look is something like fullbacks a little bit higher, have an extra wide man. We'll have our two midfielders in there, but essentially you've got an extra midfielder in here. This striker can play a much higher position, hold it, just because he can rely on maybe one of these three to take those positions in there, and those longer balls will ultimately make these guys retreat a little bit, and these midfielders will be freer to receive the ball on the half turn and then play out from there. But as we know, Bruno isn't confident with playing that way at the moment with the kind of the profile of players, as he keeps describing, that we have. I'm also just going to kind of show you a few screenshots from a thread that an Arsenal tactics page posted on Twitter, which showed how they were really, really able to take advantage of us not playing well out from the back and putting us under a lot of pressure. And it's something that needs to change. Romain Saiss, great passer of the ball. We've seen with his numbers of passing that he's elite at moving the ball forward from that left back position. Max Kilman as well, carrying the ball forward. We've seen nothing of it in the last 3 games, really, to say that he's obviously being stopped from doing so by the opposition. Connor Cody, again, really tidy player on the ball, but if the ball isn't sticking in these kind of areas as well, then you're not going to get anywhere, unfortunately. And our strikers, I mean, especially this Sunday, Bruno needed to think about the composition of that front three a hell of a lot more than he did, and realise that they weren't going to hold on to the ball if the ball was played up to them. Maybe he wasn't expecting West Ham to be as aggressive as they were, but I mean, if I'm, Kurt Zuma, famous animal rights activist, as we know, and I see that front line ahead of me, I'm thinking, you know what, I'm going to go in hard, I'm going to be physical, and I'm going to be aggressive. And they kind of wilted under it, aside from probably Fabio, but I think we needed a little bit of a break. We've looked a little bit tired. Hopefully the week between playing on Sunday and coming up against Crystal Palace gives us a little bit more time to refresh a bit. Those players who were seemingly fatigued and dropped for the game against West Ham will come back into the side. And we've got those key men like I say, Pedence, who's able to pick up the ball in these pockets and take responsibility and make things happen, will come back into the team, and we'll look to get a better result against a team, Crystal Palace, who also were really prevalent when it came to pressing us high and stopping us from playing out at Selhurst Park earlier in the season. But we look forward to getting back on home soil and hopefully producing a better performance.